Today's daf is Masechta Avodah Zarah, daf Chavav, number 26. And we're going to start from daf Chav Hey Amud Beis by Masa. The Gemara said before that when you walk with a goy and you're walking side by side with a goy and you're alone on the road, so you're afraid that he's going to kill you. So the Gemara gave you an eitzah that you should tell him that you're going further than you are, so that when you go with him and then you come to your destination, you can get off early. And that way you're protecting yourself because he probably is holding back from killing you, so to speak, until you actually reach the destination that you said you're coming to. So therefore you're permitted to lie to him. And the Gemara got this idea from Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu was walking with Esav, Harasha, and he told him, I'm going to Seir. And meanwhile, Yaakov only intended to go to Sukkos. So we see that's a good safety measure when you are traveling with a guy. So the Gemara says a story. Masa b'talmidei Rabbi Akiva. There's a story about the students of Rabbi Akiva. They were going into this place called Ksiv. Pagabo listim, and they met up with violent robbers. Okay, and they were Jewish people. These robbers were Jewish people. Amalahem, so the robbers asked the students of Rabbi Kiva, where are you going? Amalahem, they said to them, we're going to Akoy. But Kivan Shagil Ksiv, when they got to Ksiv, which is before Akoy, Pershu, they got off and they said, oh no, we're going to, this is our destination. Amru, and they planned to violate them, to rob them when they get to Akoy, but it turned out they got off the train, so to speak, and said, "Oh, we're going to stop in Ksiv." Amr lehem talmidei miatem. Whose students are you that knows this idea? Amr lehem, they said to them, talmidei Rabbi Kiva. We are the students of Rabbi Akiva. Amr lehem. So the violent robbers said to them, Ashrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is praiseworthy. The talmidav and his students. Shloi paga behem adam rabba olam. Nothing evil can ever happen to them because they know how all the safety measures and safety tricks to be able to prevent something bad from happening to them. So then the Gemara says another story. Rav Menashe Hava Ozol, we go to Daf Chavav Ben Aleph, Hava Ozol Beit Tursa. He was on his way to Beit Tursa. Page Beit Ganovi. So here, instead of violent robbers, Jewish robbers met him, he met regular thieves, and they were going to go with him on the road, travel along with him. Amar Lahu, so the robbers, the thieves said to Rav Nasha, La'an Kazalt, where are you going to? Amalahan, he says, the Pumpadisa. He said, I'm going to Pumpadisa, which was further away than Beit Tursa. Kimatala Beit Tursa, when they reached the destination of Beit Tursa, Parish, that's when Rabbi Menashe separated from that group. And they planned to steal from him when they got to Pumpadisa. Amrulay Talmidid Yehuda Ramoy At. They knew he was a student, Rav Menashe of Rav Yehuda, and they said, "You must be the student of Yehuda who is shrewd or who lies, basically the one that fools people. That's how you got this idea." So they insulted his master. Unlike the violent robbers with the students of Rabbi Akiva, they praised Rabbi Akiva. Here, these thieves insulted Rabbi Yehuda. Amalahu, so Rav Nasha said to them, Yadisalate, you know of Yehuda? Yehirava, you know my master? Yehirava d'leheva'ana inche b'shamte. Since you insulted him, you should be put in a curse, a cherem curse, because you insulted my master. Azlu, so the Gemara says an interesting thing. Azlu avde genevasa eser metarten shnin. For 22 years, they were doing thieves, they were stealing. They were not successful. Either they were caught and they had to pay back more than they stole. So these people had this curse on them, and they were not successful. So since they saw they weren't successful, they all requested to remove the curse from them by begging forgiveness from Rabbi Menashe on behalf of his rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda, that they insulted Rabbi Yehuda. Remove the curse. So, Vahava Barichad. So when they removed the curse, I guess they got successful again. There was one part of the team of thieves. He was a weaver. And Rashi says a weaver is usually somebody who is just a brazen person, and he didn't want to ask Mechila to get his curse removed. So because he didn't do that, Achli Aryeh, a lion ate him. He lost his life. Hainu Damra Inche. So that's why people say Girdisa Deloy Taizan, a a a uh, an a weaver that's not humble, right? Shati Batzer Mishneh. He loses a year from his years. In other words, because of his brazenness, and so this person, because of his brazenness, he is actually causing his life to be shortened. So same thing over here. All the other thieves asked Mechila from Rabbi Yehuda to remove the curse, and they got the curse removed. But this one of them, who happened to be a weaver, did not want to come and ask his curse be removed, and therefore a lion ate him up. And now the Gemara says like this: Tochazi, why don't you observe? Ma ben ganove Bavel, the thieves of Bavel, which are less violent criminals of Bavel, yet they insult the rabbi, Rav Yehuda, and the list in the Eretz Yisrael. Look at the violent muggers of Eretz Yisrael, and you see that the violent people of Eretz Yisrael have more respect for a rabbi than the quiet Ganavim of Bavel. So we see that even the worst of Eretz Yisrael is better than the not so good of Bavel. New Mishnah. Mishnah discusses over here an interesting thing. Bas Yisrael loy tiyalid es anachris. A Bas Yisrael should not act as a midwife for a Goyish woman giving birth. Why? Obstetrician. Should be yaledis bein l'avodah zarah. Because you're causing a boy to be born for the Avodah Zarah, to do Avodah Zarah. So the Chazal says, don't work for a guy as a midwife. Aval, but Nachris miyaledis Bas Yisrael. And Nachris, a Goyish midwife, could help a Jewish woman give birth in the Jewish woman's house. And we're not scared that this Goyish midwife is going to kill the child that was just born. We're going to see more about that in the Gemara. Then the Mishnah says, Bas Yisrael loitonik beno shel nachris. A Jewish girl should not be as a wet nurse for a Goyish baby, right? Avol nachris, a Goyish lady, menika beno shel Yisrael b'shusa, can become a wet nurse and nurse a Jewish child, in the mother's home. So in the mother's home, and we're not afraid that the nurse is going to kill the child. Okay, so that's what the Mishnah says. Now, so the Gemara says like this: Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, and this the Gemara elaborates. Bas Yisrael lo tiyalid es nachris. That we learned in the Mishnah. A Jewish girl should not be a midwife for a Goyish lady, because you're causing a child to be born for the Avodah Zarah. The Nachris loy tiyalid Bas Yisrael, and a Goyish lady should not help a Bas Yisrael. In other words, she should not even help, but we should not allow a Goyish lady become a midwife for Bas Yisrael, not like our Mishnah. Because the Mishnah is the opinion of Rab Meir, and he holds mepnei shechashudin al shvichas damim. We are afraid the Goyish midwife will kill this baby that's born. Divrei Rab Meir. So says Rab Meir. Chachamim disagree and says Nachris miyaledis is Bas Yisrael, and Nachris could help a Bas Yisrael give birth. Of course, the midwife comes to the Jewish home, but you also need something else. If you have other people watching over her, then you're allowed to have a Goyish midwife. So you need two things. Number one, she comes to the Jewish home, And number two is you have other people watching her that she should not kill. Avaloi beino lebeino. She cannot, it cannot be between a midwife and the Jewish lady. If they're alone, we don't allow that to happen because we're afraid that the midwife, the Goyish midwife, will kill the Jewish child that's born. But if somebody's watching over her, then that's okay. It doesn't have to be watching. It could just walk in as she knows somebody's watching her. Even if other people are watching over her, no doing. She cannot. You cannot have that. Maybe she's going to place her finger onto the weak part of the skull of the child that's born. The katule, and she's going to kill the child. Nobody will notice, or nobody will be able to see her or stop her. So Rameir is very strict. You can't have a goyish midwife. And Rameir has a story. There was this woman that said to her friend, they were taunting her. Oh, you're a goyish midwife. You're helping Jewish children be born. Your mother did the same thing. Amrlei, so the midwife said, "The fishim bishni I suffered enough shame. I spilled so much blood of Jewish blood, like the foam of a river." In other words, she showed off that she says, "Oh, you call me a midwife, but all you should know that I was killing children as they were born." So we see from here, like Rab Meir, that the Jewish midwives do kill Jewish boys when they're born. So how does Rabbanon allow that to happen? Answers the Gemara, Rabbanon, Amalei Loihi. That story is not true. She was just showing off to try to defend herself. She was a real good midwife, and she didn't kill Jewish children. She just said that, because other people were insulting her. But really, if acheres oim desalgaba, if there are other people standing over her, you could have a goyish midwife. Now we said, the Mishnah says, Bas Yisrael Leitonik. Ton Rabbanan. Bas Yisrael Leitonik B'Noshan Nachris. Okay, a Jewish lady should not be a wet nurse for a guy. Because you're causing a child to grow up to be to worship Avodah Zarah. The Nachris, but a goyish lady, Leitonik is B'Nos B'Nos Bas Yisrael. She should not even be a wet nurse. She should not be a wet nurse of the right. Yeah, interesting, right? So, yes, the rabbis knew about the way to kill a child very easily by the soft part of the brain, right? The Gemara says, "V'nochrish leitanik es b'noshel bas Yisrael." A nochrish should not be a wet nurse for a bas Yisrael, but neishach shudal shvichas damen divrei meya. The Chacham says, Nachris Manikas Benosha Bas Yisrael. A goy could be the wet nurse of a Jewish child, and we're not afraid that she's going to kill the child, but Bisman Shacheres Oimdis Al Gaba, Avaloi Beino Leveino. It's not, she can't do it privately. It has to be in the Jewish home, but some people have to overwatch her and watch her while she's nursing the Jewish child. Rab Meir said, Afila Cheres Oimdis Al Gaba Namid Loi. Even if you have other people watching over to her, she should not be a wet nurse. Why? Because when she's nursing, let's say a 4-month-old baby, the zimyan, the shaifele samoladad me'abrai, let's say before she came into the house, she put poison on her chest. And then if you can allow her to nurse, the kid's going to eat the poison. V'katalein, she's going to kill the kid. So it's not going to help that you're going to have somebody on top of her if she put the poison in before she came to the house. Says the Gemara Tzricha, and have to have a machlokes between Reb Meir and the Chachamim regarding becoming a wet nurse or a midwife. If it would just stay this story machlokes between about a midwife, I would say behi kamri d'rabbanan d'shari. Only by a midwife, Rabbi says it's permitted. It's impossible to kill because other people are overseeing her. Aval minika, but a wet nurse, it's possible for her to put poison on her chest from the outside and kill the child. So maybe the Chachamim would agree to Rab Meir that a Goyish woman should not be allowed to be a wet nurse to a Jewish child. The Yashmin and Menika, if we would say this machlok is only by a wet nurse, I would say, but he come a Rameir dasa. Over there, Rameir says it's awesome, because she puts poison and kills the child. Aval miyaledes, but if the light afsha, heichad acher is on this al gabel, maybe maybe when it comes to a midwife, Rab Meir would agree to Rabbanan, since there's somebody overseeing her, she's not going to squeeze the child's head. Tzricha, that's I have to tell you that there's even there, Rab Meir argues and says that a woman is a Goyish woman, she's not allowed to be a midwife to a Jewish lady. Says the Gemara, Uraminhi, let me ask you a stira. And our Mishnah says that you're not allowed to be a midwife at all, right? A Jew is not allowed to be a midwife for a goy. No questions asked. Here the Brisa says, Yehudis miyaledis aramas. A Jew is allowed to be a midwife for a goy. Bischar, if she's getting paid, she's not allowed to do it for free. Answers the Gemara, Amar of Yosef, yes. If she's a professional midwife and she gets paid, B'sacha shari, then it's permitted, Mishum Eva, because this will lead to, if she's not going to take the job, it will cause animosity between Jews and Goyim. Hey, you have a professional, so I want to hire her, and she's a Jewish nurse, and the Jews were refusing. So this is going to bring animosity between Jews and Goyim. So there, the Brisa says it's permitted. It's permitted. However, our Mishnah is talking about where the Goy is asking the Jew to be a midwife for free. For free, you can work your way around it and say, oh, I don't work for free because I need the money. So Savar Rabbi Yosef Rameira, Rabbi Yosef wanted to say, one is allowed to help a Goyish lady give birth on Shabbos. So Hatzalah can respond to a Goyish lady giving birth on Shabbos. B'sachar, if they get paid for it, and Shari, Mishum Eva, because there's no animosity. If you're a professional EMT and you're getting paid for it, so you're allowed to help a guy on Shabbos to give birth. And it's not an Issa Daraisa because the baby's about to come out, so there's no Issa Daraisa doing there. And so not to cause animosity between Jews and Goyim, we allow that to work. Amalei Abai said no. Yachla Lemema, you could always get around it. The dam the mintre Shabbat mechalin aleyo. The tchud the mintre Shabbat so mechalin. For a Jewish child, you could always say, a Jewish child, I could violate my Shabbos to help give birth. But for a Goyish child that doesn't keep Shabbos, when my religion prevents me from being Mechal Shabbos. So if you have a way to get around it that's not going to lead to animosity, you should avoid being a midwife for a guy. Savar Rabbi Yosef Rameir, Rabbi Yosef thought to say, Anuki b'sacha shal mishum eva. It's permitted to nurse a child, be a wet nurse for a child, if they pay you. If the goyim pay you and you're a professional wet nurse, then it's permitted because of animosity. If you're going to refuse, they're going to say, oh, the Jews hate the goyim. So therefore, you have to allow yourself to get paid. Amalei Abai could say, you could get away with it, even if they pay you. You could say, if the lady is not married, that's the wet nurse. She could say, I don't want to be a wet nurse anymore. But I want to get married, and this is not I can't do this. It's going to make me weak. If she's married to she's already married, she could say, I don't want to make myself unattractive to my husband. So if you have a way around it, even if they're going to pay you, Abaya says you should use the excuse and not be a wet nurse for a guy. Savar Rabbi Yosef Lameim, Rabbi Yosef said, how the time that we learned in the Brisa. HaGoyim, here's a fascinating thing. Goyim, v'roya behemadaka. Jewish shepherds that shepherd small animals. And usually they're ganovim, and they're such into geneva because they shepherd the animals into somebody else's field. So, loy malim v'loy meridin. If they fall into a pit, you don't have to help them save themselves, but you can't push them into a pit. But so the guy is in a pit, you don't have to save him. You could just walk by and says, "Listen, I'm busy." Asuki b'sachashar. But if they offer a reward to pay you to help save them from the pit, you have to help them. Mishum Eva, because there's animosity. And you don't want to cause animosity between Jews and Goyim. Amalei Abai says you don't have to save the Goy. You could say, tell the Goy, Koi bri aigra. I can't save you because I have to use the ladder. My son is stuck on a roof or somewhere. I have to run somewhere else. And you say somebody else, somebody else should save you. Inami, you could say like this: Nikita li zimna lebeis davar. I'm supposed to respond to the government. They're calling me now for a civil service, so I have no time to save you. So you can get away around it, and therefore that's not going to lead to Ava, and therefore you don't have to save the goy. Tana Rababo Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Rababo learned the brisa before Rabbi Yochanan. Hagoyim v'roi behem adaki. You have goyim, and again Jewish ganovim, but certain type of shepherds. These are the worst type of Jews. They don't care for anybody else's money. So loy malin, if they fall into a pit, loy malin, you don't have to help them save them. When we go to Amid Beis, v'loy meridim, but you don't bring them up. Aval, but says the brisa, haminim v'hamoisrus v'hamushmodim. Haminim. What happens if you have a Christian that became a Jew that became a priest, a Jew who became a priest for Christianity? V'hamoisores was somebody a Jewish guy who reports his friend to the government so that he should lose money. V'hamushumodim, of somebody who just converts to Christianity. So then, Maridim v'loy malam, you're allowed to push them into the pit, and you don't have to save them. We're going to learn that this doesn't mean push them actually into a pit and kill them, but we're going to learn explain what that means in a moment. Amalei, so the Rabbi Yochanan said, "Ana shayne," but I learned l'chol avedis achicha, that if your friends, you have to help your friend whatever he lost. L'rabbis hamashumad, even if a Jew that converts to Christianity, you have to help them and bring back whatever they lost. You have to return if they lost an item. And you tell me you're allowed to push them into a pit and kill them? So smi mekam meshumad. So you cross out the meshumad. The only people that you actually push into the pit and you don't help save them is haminim, is the priest, the hamoisores, and somebody who reports to he's a meiser. He reports his friend to the government. Says the Gemara, "V'lishne kam b'meshubed oichel leveyos l'teyavin kam b'meshubed oichel leveyos l'hachas." Maybe there are two different types of converts. One type of converts is a guy who'll eat non-kosher when he has nothing else to eat. So then he just needs to eat. He'll go into a Wendy's and have a burger. But so then it's not his fault. He just wants to save money, or he doesn't have any other food. But maybe that the Bryce is taking Maridim V'loy Malin is talking about a meshumid that eats nevelas lahachas. Even if he has kosher foods, he'll specifically pick the non-kosher food. And so maybe that's what meshumid is talking about. So Kesavar, Rabbi Yochanan held, anybody who eats nevela on purpose is considered to be something of a min, of like is already somebody like a priest. So that's not what a meshumid is. Meshumid is a guy who converts, and he converts because it's much easier to be a Christian. Says the Gemara, Itmar, we learned, meshumid pligibor of acha ravina chadam alatayava meshumid lahachas minhavi. One person, one of the Tanamoraim said, L'teyavan, if you do it because you're hungry, you're a converted. Lahachas, if you do it on purpose, minhave. Then you're like you're a min. You're like a priest. Even if you do it on purpose and you just eat non-kosher food because you just don't believe in kosher, even if you have kosher food in front of you, you're considered a meshumad. And you're not like a min. A min that writes a Sefer Torah, pasal. A meshumad, a guy who converted to Christianity and writes a Sefer Torah, it's still kosher. Ela min, what is called a min according to that opinion? If a guy serves idols, then he's considered an avodah zarah. That's called a min, or somebody who's very connected to avodah zarah. He's like a missionary. He's a missionary for Christianity. Meisvei. So Gemara asks, we see if someone eats a fly or a mosquito, he's considered a converted, he's a meshumad, somebody who converts. If that's somebody who eats a mosquito, has no taste, that's considered doing it on purpose. Ukutani meshumad, and we consider him somebody who's just like a converted, and you're telling me that lahachas is, if you do something lahachas, you're a min. you're something worse than a meshumad. You're like a min, which is like a priest. So why does the Brisa say hareze meshumad? And says the Gemara, Hosam boy lemitin tamid yusura. When you're eating a mosquito, you want to taste what it's like to eat a mosquito. So you're not really a lahakas doing it because you're angered at the whole idea of kosher. You just want to know what the goyim talk about, that they eat mosquitoes. Let's learn a half a minute more, and that's it. Just to get to finish this idea. Amamar, we learned before that somebody who is a min, again, a min is somebody who is a missionary for Christianity. He's like a priest. And a moiser, you could throw them into the pit, and you don't have to save their life. Maridim avaloy ma'alim. So the Gemara asks the question, Hashachuti machtinam, I could throw them into the pit. Asuki mibaya, you have to tell me I don't have to help them get saved? It doesn't make sense. So here, Amar Rav Yosef Bar Chama Rav Sheshes le'nitzurcha, really you're not allowed to push them into a pit and kill them. But shimhoisam, what the Brisa means, loy ma'alin means maridim. That even if the shimhoisam alababar, let's say there was a ladder in the pit, so the moiser or the min could climb out, migarara, you can get rid of the ladder. You could shmush it so the steps so that he can't climb out. The nokad le'ilav ama, you could say the reason why I'm removing the ability of steps in this pit, like teiches chayvus, I don't want animals to come into the pit. That's why I'm removing it. So that's not going to lead to anger. You have an excuse. Rabba Rav Yosef da Amrei Tavayo loy nitzrucha el shim hoise even al pia be'er machasa oma laburi chayvasa ilave. Let's say the min fell into a pit, and you're allowed to put a stone over the pit, and you could say, oh, I'm putting the stone, I know there's a guy there, but I want my animals to walk across and not fall into the pit. And you can say, oh, I'm going to remove the top away as soon as my animals pass, and then you forget. Ravina says, sulam misalkai. If you have a ladder in the pit, misalka, you can remove it before the min or the moiser gets out of the pit. And Amar, you can tell him, I need the ladder because my son is in danger. He's stuck on a roof and I have to help him. So all these things are, you're not killing the moiser or the min, but you're preventing them from saving themselves by pulling out their means of escape. Okay, we'll see more tomorrow. Okay.